I'm with the office in Jacksonville and have been a career prosecutor. When our current state attorney Melissa Nelson, took office in 2017, I began working with her and her management team in collaboration with a project with the MacArthur Safety and Justice Challenge with Florida International University and Loyola of Chicago on the development of prosecutorial performance indicators. And the shorthand for prosecutorial performance indicators is really nothing more than data analytics. We're all familiar with data analytics as it relates to business, but we haven't really, except for the last few years, started to think about policies. What do we use to inform our policies, whether we're dealing with low-level drug offenses or other matters within the office about applying minimum mandatories. I've sat in these management groups for a number of years in discussions about what people think ought to happen is almost always instituted. But one of the questions that Ms. Nelson started to ask is what informs our policies? And we not only have statutory and rule guidance, but we ought to have some data to drive the decisions that we make about policy. And I think the upshot for any data dashboard, and in particular our experience, is that most offices across the country at some measure or level have a case management system. What I think the data dashboard tries to do, or what you're trying to do with a data dashboard, is use the data that you have in your case management system and help turn your case management system into an analytical tool. And that sounds a whole lot easier than it is. And so when I show you our data dashboard, you can certainly have the link, and you do have the link, and I encourage you to go take a look at it. I won't spend time going through the individual performance indicators or any aspects of our dashboard as much as I'll tell you the story of some of the challenges and pitfalls and successes that we've had as an office that went from, in 2017, this being just simply an idea, to ultimately publishing an outward-facing data dashboard in December of 2020. So we took the complete 4 years of the first term of Ms. Nelson's tenure to develop this project. And in my role in the office, overseeing the administration of the office, this sort of fell on my realm of responsibilities to work with MacArthur and to continue to figure out how we do a couple things. The first thing that comes to mind is, how much of a limitation do you have with your case management system? How robust is your case management system? That was one of the primary concerns that I had after we attended our first meeting with some of our partners in the MacArthur challenges. We were working with Chicago, we were working with Milwaukee. They had already developed a pretty robust case management system. Chicago was really on the verge of already having a data dashboard, and we had never really looked at our case management system as anything other than a place where we store data points. And we've used our case management system for almost 20 years. And we have an inordinate amount of records that we can use. We've got something on the order of 4 million records that are in our case management system. But because we hadn't undertaken this before, we didn't have the staffing that I think is needed to think about how you take your case management system, you extract the data from it, and then you make it usable and intelligible in a data dashboard context. So there's not only staffing limitations that you have to think about in your IT department, but there's also funding limitations as well. And that funding can be appropriated positions for staffing. It can be bringing on additional IT staff and the cost associated with that. It can be upgrades to your case management system. There's modifications that have to be made to different fields or different variables that you're trying to capture. So we learned this along the way. If I were to provide a guidebook, and my message to you would be essentially that you sit down first, if you're contemplating as an office having a data dashboard, and ask the question, what is it feasible with what we currently have in terms of staffing, in terms of what our case management capabilities are, and in terms of what our excess dollars are? And if it's not, then the question is, well, how can we get to a point of feasibility? And MacArthur helped us immensely, and the researchers that we worked with at FIU, because they had been through this process before. So they were able to teach one of our staff members to extract the data that needed to be extracted from our case management system. And then there's another process that is completely beyond my ability to explain, where they take the data and put it into this intelligible form that we can use on the data dashboard so that you can see the line graphs and the charts. But the importance for the prosecutor side of the house is we're asking ourselves when we develop policy, what are we basing our policy on? And then secondly, is an equally important question is, if we implement a policy, is there a way that we can look over time at what that policy is doing? Is it having an unintended consequence? Can we look at a particular sentencing policy over the course of a year or a year and a half and see that something is not right from year to year, or there's a significant change from year to year? And that's what I think the value of the data dashboard is internally for us. It's not only an outward facing tool or an outward facing product that the community can consume, but inward, it allows us to look at different policies in our office and make decisions about policy and what's been implemented, and we can also measure those policies. One of the other great things, and I would strongly encourage that if you are considering a data dashboard, is to find a grant opportunity or a research partner with a university that has a data IT department. I think that our own experience was when we looked for, I think, the most important hire that we made with our data dashboard, and that is a data IT specialist. Our data IT specialist is Avi Namila, and he is a part of this group today. And you'll have an opportunity in a breakout room to interact with him. But we found Avi as a data IT specialist with the help of MacArthur and FIU, primarily because when we set out to make a solicitation, we didn't know where to solicit. We didn't exactly know what we needed for this position. As a prosecuting agency, we're used to hiring prosecutors, we're used to hiring investigators, we're used to hiring clerical staff. But we ended up going over to a local university and meeting with their IT department, and we asked them what skill sets, what qualifications we should use in the solicitation to try to find somebody to help us do this. They not only helped us put that solicitation together, but they also helped us direct where we needed to advertise, what trade publications we needed to look to try to find and marry the person with the right skill set to this project. So we were very fortunate to be able to have the funding with the MacArthur project and the technical expertise to help us bring on staff a data IT specialist. And that data IT specialist has been just essentially transformative for us. He now is able to be the individual that is able to extract the data that we need from the case management system to convert it into the dashboard. And these are all conversations that I have with him. I can explain to him to some extent the way that a case flows. I can explain to him some of the aspects of the criminal justice system, but he is the one with the specialized knowledge and expertise. The prosecutorial performance indicators that we developed with MacArthur that we put on our dashboard essentially covered 3 buckets that are on the dashboard in different colors. Capacity and efficiency is one grouping of the performance indicators, community safety and well-being is another, and then fairness and justice. And to give you an example, on the organizational and staff capacity, we're just simply looking at something along the lines of, volume of cases. What are we looking at in terms of what our office has brought in year after year after year?
You have 5 minutes remaining.
That's helpful to give some sense to the community of what the volume of work is, both on the felony and misdemeanor side. number of jury trials. These are all pretty standard metrics that I think most offices are familiar with. So we get the dashboard published with Avi's help, with the MacArthur Foundation's help, through FIU's help. And then the ultimate question is, what now? We developed the data dashboard. We made our commitment to publish it. And then the question is, what do we do with it going forward? And one of the other strong lessons that I think I've learned and would pass along is that in most instances, the publication of the dashboard to some extent is the achievement, but the follow through and the continuing maintenance of the dashboard is very important as well. And I think we've reached a point in our office where we have a data working group, or a data dashboard working group, comprised of stakeholders across the office that work with us on developing new performance indicators. We have some that we haven't published. We have some that we need to make modifications to our case management system in order to develop something as simple as bond recommendations. We hadn't been tracking bond recommendations until this project. So we needed to add a field to capture what the state's bond recommendation is, so that one day we can look at that and create that as a new performance indicator. The same is true for being, I think, a data culture, transforming your office from a prosecutor's culture to a data culture. And we need people in the office to do that. So we have a group that works on data integrity. We have a group that works on, we call them data ambassadors. And they're the ones that sort of spread the good news of what the dashboard can do, what it has shown in an instance that we've changed a policy or we've modified a policy. But I think it's important to have an owner of that dashboard. And so one of the positions we're considering is just simply a data dashboard manager. Now that the dashboard has been published, this person's responsible for sort of the day-to-day and month-to-month work to ensure that it remains up to date, that we're thinking about what we should be publishing today versus what we were publishing a year and a half ago, and what we should be publishing on the dashboard a year and a half from now, because these decisions have to be made now in order to start working towards capturing the data that you have and what you need. The other thing I'll leave you with is somewhat as a final note of this is that when we were working towards publishing the dashboard and using the resources to develop these performance indicators, we were concerned about what the outcome might be in the community. Would people receive it? Would there be criticism of it? Would it be something that was heralded as, oh, this is a wonderful effort and transparency and accountability? And I think in some measure, we just met with the publication. We really didn't have a great deal of traffic. We've not had a great deal of traffic. Those that were interested have come to the site. I'm sure after today's presentation, we'll have an uptick in our traffic, but we follow our analytics to see what the traffic is. And it just kind of ebbs and flows, but it's not at the volume that we sort of anticipated. And in working with some of the researchers, I think the outcome is essentially this: you commit to do this. It's important for the office. It's important internally for management, but there's also a group or people out there that have sort of settled on their statistics, and they've settled on their view of the criminal justice system. And it's not necessarily—
You have 1 minute remaining.
And it's not necessarily data that's going to change those agendas. So you come in with a realistic expectation that you're publishing your data dashboard as an effort of accountability and transparency in your community to show the work that you're doing, and internally to use it to drive your management policies and measure your management policies over time, but also recognize that it's in some measure more for the office's benefit than it is for the community's benefit. It's a great experience. It was in many ways kind of our first term project with the state attorney, and we needed a lot of outside help, and we obtained a lot of outside help, and that's what enabled us to do this. So thank you for your time today.